Alright, I'm going to do a how-to on how to make a little snake pendant today. So you will need some polymer clay. I use a nice light green color there. Some sort of a needle tool. There's a couple options you can get. I got this in a little kit with X-Acto knives. This is just a sewing needle, and I made a clay handle for it. So I stuck the needle in it, baked it, pulled the needle out, and super glued it back in. So that's a fun and easy tool to use. You can just use a little bamboo skewer or just a small knitting needle. This one has a kind of fun little handle that I made for it. You also will want some kind of texture stick. Now, the nice thing about these is they have a nice little texture right on them, so you can use that on your clay to make a texture. These are kind of cool little things. What I did for these was I just took a plain wooden dowel and I wood burned various designs on them, and then they can be rolled over the clay. For the eyes, you'll want some of these little small holeless glass beads. And then if you want to antique your snake, I like to use just a kind of a little stencil rough brush. It's pretty stiff. You'll need, I like to use tinted liquid Sculpey is what this is. It's there's several forms of it. It's a liquid polymer clay, and you can just stir in a little alcohol ink to tint it, is what I used on this. You can also just use some plain old black paint if you want to. Alright, let's get started. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you'll want to prepare your clay. This has been run through a pasta machine a couple of times, so if you have that, it's really nice. It makes it a little bit easier. But if you don't, just tear some off. Let's see about that much. And squish and roll it until it gets nice and pliable. And you can see this has gotten nice and pliable. Rolled it into a nice little ball. So you can start by just rolling it into a ball. And then you're going to want to, just like when you were little with the play clay, roll it back and forth so you can make a snake. And you can roll it on your surface. If you tilt your hand a little bit towards one end, it will start getting a little bit skinnier on that end, and that's what you want. As you roll, your hands can move apart from each other, gently down the snake. If you have little bumps, you can kind of go back to them and smooth them out a little bit. This is something that just gets easier with practice. Just like anything else, the more you practice, the easier it will be to make shapes do what you want them to do. So now that we have our snake rolled out, we're going to create the head. We can just add a little bit more pressure so it starts coming to a little bit of a point on this end. I'm going to take my knitting needle tool and just where I want the head to start, I'm going to roll back and forth gently so that I create a little groove. Now I'm going to take the head and I'm just going to mush it down a little bit this way. I'm going to let it come to a little bit more of a triangle shape. So it looks like a snake's head. And then once you're happy with the shape of that head, you can put him back down. Now this is a pretty stark indent here, so we can just kind of roll and roll it so he still has a head, but the separation between his head and the rest of his body isn't quite so big. You can shape his head a little bit more after you do this because it might get just a little bit bumped. Now I want to add some texture to my snake. So I'm going to lay him down, and I'm just going to gently take my finger along him and just flatten him out just a little bit so I can add some texture to his back, or her back. You can have a girl or a boy snake. Now take one of your texture tools I like this one for snakes. It's just a bunch of dots. All you have to do now is gently roll it down the length of your snake. You could also take a little needle, and if you don't have any other texture tools, you could just press the side of the needle all along. Get some fun little stripes. Now we're going to arrange the snake how we want it to be for the pendant. So he's going to come over here as we gently wrap it around. You want to be kind of careful because you don't want to make all of your texture disappear. And his little head is just going to sit on top there. He's going to wrap around. Now, if I just wanted to make a little snake to sit on my shelf, I could do anything I wanted with his tail, or if he was going to be part of a sculpture. But since I want him to be a wearable snake, you see, kind of have to make sure you keep the texture put up towards the side where you want it to be. I'm going to let his tail come up. Then I'm going to twist it back over the top. And make a little loop with it. And press it down. Okay, we're going to make our snake's eyes now. So we're going to take our needle tool, decide about where we want the eyes to be. We're going to poke with the needle tool two little holes for the eyes. Take our little micro beads and grab one of those. Tweezers make it a little bit easier sometimes. Not today, apparently. Sometimes you can press one with your finger and pick it up. They are kind of fiddly, as you can tell. And then gently press a little bead into the indentation. I'm going to press it down with my needle tool so it's nice and securely in there. there's our snake. We might want to make sure that everything is staying together, not falling apart. And then it's time to bake according to the clay manufacturer's directions. Now the snake has been baked and it's time to antique. So I've got my tinted liquid Sculpey and my stiff brush. I put down a piece of wool wax paper because this is kind of messy. So you just take this, put it all over the snake. Get it into the little crevices. Now once you got him all covered, just take a paper towel and wipe off the excess so it's mostly just in the little crevices of your snake. And when you've got it to where you like it, it needs to go back in the oven for another baking. Once again, just follow the clay manufacturer, whatever kind of clay you're using. Follow their instruction. So here he is out of the oven. And I decided that I wanted to add a little sparkly. So I'm going to take a little bit of metallic paint and dab it on the top of him. And now I found this cord that I liked, and I put a jump ring around him and slid my snake onto the cord. So now I have my very own cool little snake necklace.